Well, hi, everyone. Just to introduce myself in a way that will be familiar, I'm a computer scientist. I have an Android phone. For some reason, I really want a Coca-Cola. And I really love real-time data, which is what I'm going to talk about today. We've heard a lot in this conference about identity and about privacy. And so today, I really want to speak about the dark underbelly that lies between those two things. So what is the difference between what we show the world and what we keep to ourselves? And what can we learn about the world by looking at that private or identifying data in aggregate? And so all of the actions we take leave some mark on the world. And I like to use the metaphor of footsteps. For the most part, the actions we take are not directly identifiable with our names and our home addresses and our other personal data, but they're left in the impression of our personal form. And so we do leave our mark. And in aggregate, the marks of human beings tell a really interesting story. And so here's a map, just a bit.ly clicks in 1 hour from around the world. There are no lines on this map. 27% of our traffic that was attributable yesterday was from the United States, the rest from outside. So we're not the center of the world. And it comes from a variety of different social networks. If you can go back just one slide. It's important to look at a variety of different platforms because if you analyze only one, you tend to find local maxima that are very uninteresting. So you'll find things like mafia wars on Facebook or Twitter memes that are just interesting on Twitter. But we look across a variety of platforms, and we're able to find there are some really unexpected things in here, actually. I didn't know people were sharing bit.ly links in Minecraft until I made this slide. So we know what you read. We know it wherever you are in the world and whichever mechanism you're using to share that data. And so this tells us some really interesting things. We can take items of worldwide import and sort of understand how their intellectual impact resonates around the world. So let's start with pizza. I don't know about you or where you're from, but pizza is a really emotional thing in New York. I'm from New York City. If you were reading articles about pizza last night in New York City, these were the words that you were reading. These are words like cheap, slice, Madison, Park, hot, Manhattan. This is how New Yorkers pay attention to their pizza. But if you were here in California, this is what you care about. Artichoke, avocado, camping, Wolfgang Puck, and caramel is in there. I don't know why. And if you were in Rome, Italy, I don't speak Italian, but they seem very obsessed with cheese. So speaking of pizza, we can take a look at Mr. Herman Cain, and we can start to see how people around the United States think about him. So I went and I pulled the top headline by state and just put it on this map. The colorings are arbitrary. I made those up. You can see California, 999 Herman Cain's tax plan exists in another world. Florida, Bill O'Reilly, the Herman Cain factor. South Carolina, big fans. Can go on. Oregon has a SimCity game special in honor of Herman Cain. Where in Texas, they really care about how he identifies himself racially. And we can keep following this and learn some interesting things about how our opinions are geographically reflected by what people are reading and in real time. So this is another graph that I think is interesting because it is ugly and simple. This is a graph of bit.ly clicks by hour in Tunisia from October of 2010 to July 2011. I'm going to zoom in on the middle of this graph. Something really interesting happened in Tunisia in January. There was a revolution. And so each little bump here is one day. We see a normal diurnal pattern. But we actually see the pattern of the way people consuming social media changing while their government changed. And so I'm not making any grand statements that this had anything to do with the change itself, but rather that we see human activity reflected through something so simple as the number of people clicking on links. I find that kind of amazing. So we can also look at things not just on the URL level or the click level, but sort of take a look at what words people are reading. And these were the top things last night. And when I checked this morning, it was things like iPhone 4S, for some reason, ice cream sandwich, Android, all that fun stuff. And we can sort of get a real-time barometer of how people feel about different topics. And people are really the key. So we can take one person and we can draw a graph based on people clicking on one thing, also clicking on other things. And if we do this by topic, we tend to learn really interesting things, like people who read religion only read religion, and people who look at adult content only read adult content, and everything else is really intermixed. So I wanted to pick something pretty typical. So I started with this page that was one of our top links yesterday. It's a pretty standard advertising campaign, but people who were reading this link were also reading this. That's an Etsy item, $30. They were reading this, which is a story of a depressed mother tiger where her zookeepers wrapped up little piglets in tiger outfits to cheer her up. It's really beautiful. And they were looking at this, which are Japanese sandals that give you dog footprints when you're on the beach. So let's jump into that underbelly a bit. On top, we have what you shared. This is your identity. And on the bottom, we have what you read. This is your privacy. And somewhere in between, we find some interesting contrasts. So the top things being shared yesterday were the Great Tech War of 2012, Teenage Mutant Ninja Noses, and I happened to catch it right when the nose and teeth was on top. That's a Ninja Turtle drawn on top of a nose. A press release from RIM about free stuff, the oldest marathon runner. These are the things people share and build into their online identities. Now let's look at the things they actually read. Oh yeah. Know your neighbor, he's racist. This was an animated GIF on Tumblr, and you can thank me for stopping at one of the first frames. And some other Hilary revealing the gender of her baby. Really popular. And so this is how we all appear. We want to be Superman, but this is what we really are. We're Clark Kent. And so we need some better tools, and better tools that give us better abilities to consciously curate the things we keep private and the things we share. We're starting to build some of these. I'll just go rapidly and show you a few screenshots. If anyone wants to see a demo, find me later. But this is all so that next time you're reading this page and you can't decide whether you should share it or not, you'll have tools that'll help you make a better decision. So thank you. Hilary?
Thank you so much.